Fulham. Louise, what would you like to say?
Hi there. Well, I agree with you. They're strange times.
Strange? Understatement of the century.
Strange and quite scary. To answer your initial question, Theresa May doesn't speak for me, and I find it quite worrying that she assumes that she speaks for so many people. But much more worrying is how many journalists have just copied and pasted the message that she does speak for so many people. And you had the BBC's Nick Robinson just this morning tweeting that it's without any doubt that Theresa May speaks for many of the British people. And then at the same time...
I'm a little uncomfortable when people aren't here to defend themselves, but
okay.
But you know, if he tweeted that, he might...
Well, it's all public.
No, I know, but he's not here.
I mean, it's just... There is a bit of a...
But I do that as well.
Really
no, scratch that. It's not the same as reading out a tweet from me in the studio, inviting people to comment on it, and then not even telling me it's happening. That would be a very weird thing for a colleague to do, wouldn't it?
The other thing is it's also generating quite a lot of responses, because people are saying, you know, how could you not read the responses to Theresa May's message? We can't see anyone who, whether they're a Brexit Remainer, who agrees. And the reason
I know Nick listens to me. So hopefully he's heard some of the responses that we've been collecting for the last 2 hours, and he perhaps will reflect upon the fact he may have jumped the gun. There is a sense of frustration. There is a sense of, oh my God, I've had enough of this. But what Theresa May did was segue from that into, therefore they all want to support my deal. That's where she is, frankly, blowing bubbles.
And I agree. And you spoke about the responsibility of the Prime Minister to be honest with people. And one of the reasons, I mean, I voted Remain, but one of the reasons she doesn't speak for me still is because, and I can't believe I'm saying this 8 days when we're meant to be leaving, the withdrawal agreement only lasts 21 months. And we haven't even started to debate in Commons what will happen next. No, but it's I know you're laughing because it's so absurd. But
it's a despairing laugh. I hope that came across. I hope the despair behind my chuckle was clear.
It did come across, and yet there are 8 days, so it's no laughing matter without wanting to sound too kind of...
well, Dominic Raab was chuckling his head off last night. I don't know what he's got to find funny at the moment, but, you know, 8 days to go, mate. It's sort of...
But we're talking a massive range of options, and if we think that the backstop is causing problems and staying in a customs union, which is a small part of what we're in now in the EU, just imagine what's going to happen when we start debating just customs union or FTA or just WTO or...
And what are we going to do with our fishing rights in order to balance out some of the other freedoms for other sections of our industry that are required? And I mean, this is why no deal gathers pace, you know, because it is a attractive option to people who hate thinking. And every single level of Brexit has been in many ways dictated by people who hate thinking. It's why meaningless slogans work. It's why fatuous soundbites work. It's why they're still talking about the will of the people. Because the minute you start thinking, if you have a brain in, I'd say the top 60% of the national IQ, if you have a brain that works, the minute you start thinking about this, you would now want to call it all off.
I don't think that's true, and in fact, I think there are thousands and potentially millions of people who, well, would agree with you when it says when you say call it all off, but not necessarily no deal. I think there are
no. It's the 40% that don't think we're going to fancy the look of no deal, Louise. You've misunderstood me, which means I put you in the wrong camp.
Go on.
You must be one of the people who doesn't think.
Well, ask my husband; he'd probably agree with you.
I'm teasing you.
What I would say is that there are a lot of people who right now think that the best way forward, and I'm one of them, is to revoke Article 50.
Yes,
and I know that sounds radical, and Dominic Raab was on TV yesterday saying, that would be quite radical. But actually, I disagree. I don't think it would be, because as long as when you revoke, you don't know for sure that you're definitely going to re-trigger Article 50, you can always re-trigger
Come back to it later when you've got a plan.
50.
Come back later when you've got a plan.
Yeah, and you can choose your date. I mean, how much more taking back control does the British population need? It's a win-win.
It is a win-win, although I have to put in the caveat that we never actually surrendered the control that we would, under your analysis, be taking back. And I want to clarify, because I don't want you to go away feeling affronted by my banter and my childish badinage, Louise. But what I was saying was that no deal is attractive to people who don't want to do any thinking, whether they're politicians or ordinary punters, because you can say, it's going to be great, and then put your fingers in your ears and close your mouth. So whether you're talking about Brexit means Brexit, whether you're talking about take back control...
But I disagree with that as well.
Why?
I can understand you. I think there are lots of people who are thinking very hard and who do want a no deal because they're listening, as you said, to politicians who stand up and sound responsible and sound mature, who are arguing about the benefits of WTO and about...
Well, then they can't be thinking that hard, because they're listening to people who are talking utter hogwash. The same people who were talking utter hogwash before the referendum. People like Digby Jones, people like Patrick Minford, people like Dominic
I disagree.
Raab.
They are thinking, and whether or not you agree with what they believe or not, you hear your colleague Nick Ferrari's show. You can hear people. They're thinking. They're having discussions. They're sharing information.
Yes, but I don't single out individuals who aren't here, but...
Sorry.
No, that's all right. But if somebody gives credence to the claim that the Section 24 of GATT somehow allows us to do whatever the hell we want for 10 years and everyone else can get lost, or if someone gives credence to the idea that we can solve the problem of the British border in Ireland with, quotes, alternative arrangements without explaining what they are, or, quotes, technology without actually being able to cite any examples of it, if somebody gives credence to any of these things, then I'm going to disagree with you. They are not thinking. They are simply repeating.
But you said to one of your callers earlier on, who was, I think, Grimsby, if you're just... because I think we can come across as sounding quite patronising by saying that all people who want a no deal aren't using their brains.
But they're not.
Think a lot of them are, but how far do you expect them to do?
But they can't be using their brain. Okay, so someone lands on the moon, licks a bit of rock and says it's still cheese. Are they using their brain or not?
James, I get your argument, but I think you've got to be really careful when you say that all people who are in favour of no deal don't use their brains and don't think.
But they
Often
don't.
They're reading a lot of information which isn't
that's called
necessarily real.
repeating.
And how far do you expect them to go?
That's exactly right.
When they're not elected politicians.
All right, then. So what you're saying is that the generosity and charity and decency and humanity that I extend to everybody who voted leave should now be extended to everybody who's been persuaded that they should support no deal.
What I am saying is that if you revoke Article 50, you can have no deal. It's still an option on the table. So whether you're a radical leaver, a radical remainer, or an in-betweener, we can revoke Article 50 and take back control of the timeline and make a decision in our own time.
Got it. No, I hear you, and I'm supportive of that proposal. I presume that petition is approaching 1 million now, if it hasn't crashed again, so do seek to find out more. And I'm not ready to agree with Louise. She might be right. I reserve the right to apologise in a week and say all those people who are persuaded that no deal would somehow be good for them, I shouldn't have been so rude. But right now, I'm feeling very rude. I look at the people that you're following, if you've been persuaded that no deal is a good idea, and I cannot resist pointing out that you are still following the people who've already led you into oblivion, who've already led you into chaos, who've already seen their pledges and their promises and their claims to understand the issues pulled apart in epic, spectacular and unprecedented fashion. And I would refer you once again to a former Secretary of State for Brexit who only realised that the Dover-Calais crossing was important to our import-export markets after accepting the job as Secretary of State for Brexit. If someone is still listening to him and thinking he's anything other...